Yes, my name is Art Rendell, and I'm a member of the Ladysmith Maritime Society, working on the board of directors, and have been working on this boat here behind me for the last 26 years. Okay, the boat behind me is called Northern Light. Northern Light was built in 1967 in North Vancouver by a little Japanese boatyard called Matsumoto. She was built for the Seventh Day Adventist Church as a mission boat and served from then until 1975 with the Seventh Day. They stationed it out of Port Hardy, and it went up and down the coast as far north as Prince Rupert and as far south as Pender Harbor, just doing missionary work for the Seventh Day. In '75 they got out of the business, and it went into some other hands privately. And we are the fourth owner of the boat, having bought it in 1995. Had it ever since. She's a Monk, Edwin Monk Senior design boat, built, as I said, in North Vancouver. She's a wooden hull with an aluminum superstructure. Everything above the main deck here is aluminum, which is something that Matsumoto as a shipyard became very well known for in later years. It's a single engine diesel, a Murphy diesel engine, about 170 horsepower, with a great big single propeller on her. We don't have a bow thruster or anything like that. It's just a single propeller. She does about 8.5 knots comfortably. And she's 50 feet long with a 15-foot beam and almost a 6-foot draft. So here we are in the wheelhouse of the boat, and the interior of this boat is very, very similar. Hasn't changed much from the days of the mission work. There's been a few changes, but essentially what you see is pretty much the way she was laid out back when she was originally built. So we have the wheelhouse here. It's a nice big wheelhouse with the controls over on the port side, and lots of seating room. It basically serves as almost a second living room, to use a non-technical term. The engine is underneath us. The 4-cylinder Murphy is in the engine room down below, which is almost a stand-up. It's about a 5-foot headroom down there, and she's equipped with not only the main engine, but we have a generator and a heating system and a whole bunch of batteries down below. The basic electrical system is 32 volt, which is the way she was built, and we're slowly but surely turning her over to 12 volt. The lighting now is all 12 volt LED. So that's pretty much the wheelhouse. Okay, now we're in the Salon and Galley. One of the beauties of a boat of this kind of design is that all of the windows in this are low enough that you can see out the windows when you're sitting, and it's nice and bright, lots of windows. We have a galley in this corner. The galley is pretty much original equipment. The old oil stove is still works. We still use it. Although we have put in a single burner alcohol stove for hot summer days. and a microwave with a convection oven. The salon is right behind the galley, and another advantage of this layout is that anybody working in the galley is also part of the group in the salon. So we have a dinette over on this side, on the starboard side, and we have a couple of occasional chairs over on the port side. This dinette could be made into a double, although we very, very seldom do that. It's just one of the things that when we were looking for a boat, one of our criteria is we want a boat where we don't have to make up the dinette in order to have a cup of coffee in the morning. In here is a little day head. There's two heads on the boat, one forward and this one aft. This is a little day head, a sink and a toilet. When we first bought the boat, we weren't sure that we were going to like it, and the broker said, "Oh, just paint it." And the more we looked at it, the more we thought, you know what? We'll just do things to sort of tone the pink down a bit. So new flooring and new tiles and that sort of thing. Two fridges and a freezer on board. So we have spent a lot of time in the summer, 2-3 months up north. And this is a great setup with for the food and storage and that sort of thing. Works really well. Yeah. The freezer's in the back corner of the salon. It's just an apartment style 110 freezer that works off of an inverter, and I put that in there half a dozen years ago because the old wooden box freezer that was custom built in the corner eventually rotted out. So. But I think originally in the mission days, where the freezer was is where the organ was, the music organ. And that I learned from a dock attendant in Lund one year when I was fueling up. He said, "Oh, I know this boat." He said, "I helped put the organ on it." This is the funnel, and I put this cupboard in to the funnel. There was a funny little post box underneath the stove, and I cut that all out and put a drawer down there so that there's a drawer that comes out. That was all wasted space. As far as the boat is concerned, we carry 500 gallons of diesel fuel and 250 gallons of water. So we're good for a long time, and that's the way the boat came. That's the way she was built, because of the service in the mission work. So we got lots of range. Down forward of the wheelhouse, we have the master stateroom, the main head, and the V-berth. This is the V-berth, and here we have 4 bunks set up, along with a big hanging locker in the corner. This is the way she was when the Seventh Day built her. This is where the crew was, and not much has happened up here in the intervening years. It's still the original way that the boat came. Here we go. It's a 4-cylinder, 4 gearheads around. This engine is 4-cylinder with a 6-inch bore and a 5 3/4-inch stroke. So it was designed and built for heavy-duty continuous use. Most of the Murphy engines ended up in Northwest shovels and cranes, that sort of thing. And Murphy was a company that was located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. They've been out of business for a very long time. When we bought the boat, there was 1 or 2 things that needed attention pretty quick. There was some issues down the engine room with bilge pumping. There was also a bit of an issue with the fuel system. believe it or not, a boat built in 1967, we bought it in 1995. On all those intervening years, there was no way of telling how much fuel was on board. There was no fuel gauges, nothing, and which proved to be a bit of a fun story, because I asked the previous owner how much fuel was on board, and he stared off into space and told me, oh, it's about 250 gallons of the 500-gallon capacity. We had to bring the boat from Victoria back to Vancouver, where we lived at the time, and the engine stalled out on us probably 3 or 4 times on the trip over. And when we got back to Vancouver, we discovered that the 250 gallons of fuel was actually only 40 gallons of fuel. And the reason that the engine was stalling out on us is because every time the boat rolled, the suctions came out of the fuel and it sucked air. So that was one of the first things that we had to do. Over the years, I've had canvas work done, the upholstery in here, the chairs in here, the freezer, the fridge, and the back fridge are all recent additions. We put a new genset on. Done a lot of things like painting and cleaning, those kinds of improvements. This deck head here is all new. As I got older, I discovered getting in and out of the engine room was a little more difficult, and so I moved all the electrical panels from the engine room up into the wheelhouse, and in order to get the battery capacity up a little bit more, we added another bank of 32-volt batteries into the engine room to give us a little bit more amp hours. Probably the biggest thing, which came as a bit of a shock, because structurally the boat was in great condition when we bought it, but somehow the teredo worms got into the hull, and we spent 5.5 months one winter in a shipyard getting the horn timber of the boat replaced. The horn timber is the timber that extends from the back of the keel, the stern end of the keel, out, and it's actually what the transom sits on. And so it extends, in total length, the horn timber is about 18 feet long, and it was a piece of fir, about 6 by 8 inches. And the worms had got in there and taken the whole of the center of it out. And so to replace a horn timber is a relatively simple operation. If you were a human being, it would entail laying you out on an operating table face down, cutting all your ribs off your spine, lifting your spine out, putting a new spine in, and reconnecting all the ribs. Other than that, it's a fairly simple operation. So 5.5 months, and we used Purple Heart in order to put the horn timber in. And Purple Heart, I asked the shipyard at the time, why are we using Purple Heart when all that piece was fir and we can get fir locally here? And the answer I got is a piece of fir that big, that long, and clear will cost more than importing a piece of Purple Heart from South America. So that's why we have a piece of Purple Heart down there. My wife has often said that we should have put a glass floor in here so that everybody sitting in the salon could see where all the money went, but no. So that's really the only major thing that we've done. We recorked the entire hull while we were doing that as well, and had the propeller shaft out and checked for straightness, and the propeller tuned up. The propeller is a 36-inch diameter by 24-inch pitch bronze propeller, and it is run through. I run the engine. The engine is 1800 RPM. I run it at about 1550, and it is going through a twin disc gear that is a 2-to-1 reduction. The prime motive is that I was looking for an older boat, a wooden boat, something that had kind of classic lines to it, that sort of aged well in its design, and something that I could work on. So it was a combination of all of those. The fact that she happened to start her life as a mission boat just was a lucky happenstance. It wasn't what I was looking for in the first place. It was the overall boat itself. It was something that I could play with. You know, getting from A to B is one thing, but it's a hobby to work on them. Since we've retired, we've generally managed to spend 2 to 3 months on the boat, away, traveling up north. No particular itinerary, just go and move as the spirit moves you. What's special about a wooden boat? They're warm. They're quiet. They just feel more solid. This hull is, and any wooden hull is quiet, and it's warm. You know, speaking of the hull, this boat is got 2x2 bent oak frames on 9-inch centers, and she's planked with cedar planking that is 1.25 inches thick, and it's red cedar, which when I originally looked at the boat I thought was a little strange. Asking an old-timey shipwright about red cedar, I thought below the waterline it would be yellow, and his comment was, shoot Art, half the gill netters on this coast are red cedar all the way around, so don't worry about it. And then so at the waterline, the waterline is sheathed with iron bark to give it a little bit more strength against bumping up against anything. And it's a real teak deck. It's 3/4 inch teak laid over a plywood sub. It's not. It's real teak planking, and it's original. I've done very little work other than replacing seams when they needed to be replaced. The deck house, everything from the windows up down the other side is aluminum, and I've often wondered why she was built this way, because her original plans, which I do have from Ed Monk Sr., called, of course, for the whole boat to be wood. Matsumoto Shipyard at the time was experimenting with aluminum construction. They were very closely. They had a very close working relationship with the Alcan of Canada, and Alcan was interested in getting aluminum into the marine industry, and the church was, I think, looking for a break on the building of the boat. And so all those three came together, and I think that this is an example of very early aluminum construction that Matsumoto did, who went on to become one of the premier aluminum boat builders on the coast.